It's there's the historical accounts in North America are interesting because there's actual newspaper stories from was it like I believe it's the 1800s? What do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. There are all kinds of newspaper stories about giants in the 1800s.
Newspaper stories about giant skeletons that have been discovered and excavated.
Yes, from the mid-1800s to the early 1900s.
And somehow or another, they all relate to the Smithsonian.
Most of them were associated with the mounds and the mound builders. There were thousands of mounds east of the Mississippi. I mean, people don't realize how many of these mounds there were. And these are, the monumental mounds and earthworks. Some of them still stand today. Not all of them are burial mounds. You have different kinds of mounds. Some of them are effigies. Some of them are platform mounds. But many of them are burial mounds. And many of them contain very prosaic things, like the bones of native people. But some of them were said to have contained some very, very interesting artifacts. And among those artifacts were the bones of giants, according to the newspaper reports. Now,
see if you can find.
There's a lot of them from the 1800s. Yeah,
Giant over
there's
10 feet high, 1872.
Yes, yeah, especially in the latter part of the 1800s.
How tall was it, Jimmy?
I mean, it's a
Giant over 10 feet high, according to Lewis and Richard Collins' History of Kentucky.
Now, the contention is, of course, that these are wildly exaggerated and that the newspapers were engaging in hyperbole. And that's true to some extent. I have no problem with that. I think
did have hoaxes. I've brought this up.
Some of them were hoaxes.
There's a whole lot of hoaxes.
Sure, some of them were hoaxes, and then these were the periodicals in the United States at the time were very competitive.
What is that photo? Is that bullshit? That far left photo?
Yeah, that's why.
Now that far left one, one was actually that's a disputed one. Some people believe that one is in fact was proven a hoax. Other people think there might be a conspiracy that in fact it wasn't a hoax because it was actually on display for a while. I don't know. I don't think there's any way to know, but so many articles during that time were discussing these astounding discoveries of the bones of giants and mounds. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, but even it appears that even Abraham Lincoln references this in some lecture notes. He was waxing poetically in some lecture notes about Niagara Falls. And he says in those notes, you can still read them today, you can pull them up and read them now, he says the eyes of that extinct species of giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed upon Niagara as ours do now. Those are from Lincoln's lecture notes.
Really?
I believe it's 1845, the date of those notes.
Oh, I got to read that.
Now, here's the contention, okay? This is interesting because here's the contention.
Okay.
The contention is that he was talking about mastodons and mammoths, megafauna.
Right.
That's what people say because he does mention mastodon and the mammoth later on in the lecture, in the speech. However, what they won't tell you is before he mentions that, he's in a biblical context, and he references Jesus and Moses and Adam right before he references the giants whose bones are found in the mounds of America. See?
So the eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones filled the mounds of America have gazed upon Niagara as ours do now, contemporary with the whole race of men. Older than the first man, Niagara is strong and fresh today as 10,000 years ago. The mammoth and mastodon, now so long dead, that fragments of their monstrous bones alone testify that they ever lived have gazed on Niagara in that long, long time, never still for a single moment, never dried, never froze, never slept, never rested. That seems like he's talking about mastodons.
Well, it very well.
What, Jimmy?
He very well could
He's
be
talking about the thousands of miles of water that they all would have seen.
Well, he could be talking about mastodons and mammoths, but look what he references before he gets to the giants: Christ and Moses.
Where's that?
And Adam.
He says there's still more. It calls up an indefinite past when Columbus first sought this continent, when Christ suffered on the cross, when Moses led Israel through the Red Sea, nay, even when Adam was made. And he's talking in a,
right.
So here he's in
First
biblical
came from the
context.
hand of his maker.
Yeah, he's
then
in a
as now Niagara was roaring here, the eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones filled the mounds of America. That's what's weird.
Yeah, now
the
listen,
bones fill the mounds of America.
So here's the question. Were the mounds of America filled with the bones of mastodons and giant sloths? And
No,
they weren't. Now, there have been some fragments of bones from mammoths and mastodons found in the mounds. That's true. They looked to be ritual pieces that people were buried with that were used for ceremonial purposes or something like that. Maybe some of them were carved ornately. But like, people weren't digging up the skeletons of giant sloths and mastodons and mammoths in the mounds routinely. It was very rare.
right, but it seems like if you found dead giants in the mounds, that it would be more specific. You would talk about it more than just that.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
The reference is ambiguous. So we're left to wonder, is he talking about dead giants in the biblical context, which he's clearly in a biblical context
Right.
before he gets it, or is he talking about mastodons?
And the issue is that there are giants in the Bible.
And
so-
also that when he penned these lecture notes, there were newspaper articles circulating in the United States announcing the discovery of the bones of giants in the mounds.
Right.
So it's up for debate. I don't know the answer.